So we are lesson 6, page 19. Hazel and Abigail, could you open your cameras, please? And we'll get started. So notes and rests. So we've seen this chart in grade 1, but now we have to familiarize ourselves with semiquavers, which are half of a quaver. So if you're in 4/4 time, you could have 1 semibreve taking up the bar, 2 minims, 4 crotchets, 8 quavers, or 16 semiquavers. So if you can observe the difference between quavers and semiquavers, is that they have 2 tails instead of 1 for the quaver. That's something to observe when specifically writing it, and also if you connect them, you have to put 2 beams down. So basically, this chart, what's this chart showing us? Half of a semibreve minim, half a minim crotchet, half a crotchet quaver, half a quaver semiquaver. But what I want you to do right now is to familiarize yourself with the appearance, the length, the appearance and the length of semiquavers. See, 2 tails, and they will always point towards the right, as quavers do. So semiquavers, they're very often grouped in 4s, especially in crotchet time signatures like 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 time. So when you group semiquavers in 4s, they look like this. So remember, you have to put 2 beams. Up to around probably grade 3 or grade 4, the semiquaver would be the shortest note that you'll use in regular music theory. So that's how a semiquaver grouped in 4 would look like. Okay, and then if we just fill the 2/4 with semiquavers, 4 semiquavers to a crotchet. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's count the beats. So we know that 1 semiquaver is 1/16 of a bar, of a 4/4 bar, or 1/8 of a 2/4 bar. And we know 4 semiquavers equals a crotchet, so we can count it this way: 1 crotchet, 2 crotchet, and it satisfies 2/4 time. And in 3/4, we can also put our semiquavers grouped in 4s, etc. In 4/4, we can do it as well. So you can almost all the time, group your semiquavers in 4s, unless, well, yeah, because 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 time is probably, and 6/8 time, which I'll get to later in today's lesson, would be the most, will probably be the only time signatures you'll be coming across for a long time. So let's look at the quaver rest. The quaver rest looks like this. I know, a little weird, right? I guess you could say it looks like a Q, except it's not really a Q. How could you remember this? Think of it as a 9, like a 9 but then you fill in the circle, so it looks like that. So like if you draw a 9, you fill in the circle. You could kind of do it like that. So that's how you draw a quaverist, I'd say. If you want just like a really easy way to remember it. So okay. So I want someone to guess the length of a dotted semiquaver. Anyone want to guess? So remember what a dot does to a note? So how many beats would a dotted semiquaver take up? A semiquaver takes up 1/16. 1.5 semiquavers, which is, this is kind of testing of fractions, isn't it? Hazel? So what would a dotted semiquaver, what would the length of a dotted semiquaver be? Hello? Yeah, like as Hamish says, like about 3/4 of 1 beat. So you could kind of express that as, say, like 3/16 of a semi-brief. Oh yes, just 3/4 of 1 beat. I'm happy with that. And Eva dropped out. Yeah, and with a dotted quaver. Wait a second. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3/4 of 1 beat. That would be for a dotted quaver. So, because since a dotted semiquaver is 1/4 of 1 beat, or 1/16 out of a whole bar. So a semiquaver is 1/4 of 1 beat. So that means a dotted semiquaver would be, come on, math guys. 3/8 of 1 beat. Okay. Does that make sense regarding length? Yeah. Okay. Could you guys open your cameras? So, yeah, so what's important to remember here? You probably wouldn't come across dotted semiquavers. That was just like a little fun for you guys. But semiquavers are grouped in 4s, and when they're grouped in 4s, you can treat them like a crotchet. The same thing, if a quaver was grouped in 2, you could also treat it like a crotchet. So question 13, what would these time signatures be? First one, Eva?
2 over 4.
Good. Next, Abigail? Remember, when there's a dotted crotchet followed by a quaver, you can treat it as a minim.
4.
4/4, good. And 4/4 is also
C.
common time. And next, this one. Hang on. 3/4. Yep, 3/4, good. So you have a minim. And you can remember, if you have 4 semiquavers, you can treat that as a crotchet. So a minim plus crotchet is 3. Your time signature is 3, 4. And this one. I just gave you the answer, 3, 4. Okay. Does this concerning notes and rests make sense? Okay. So I think I touched on the semi-brief rest in grade 1 just really briefly, but I'll do it again in case so semi-brief rest looks like a minimum rest, as you can observe, but the minimum rest is above the line. How could you visualize this? Well, imagine a face. It's a Korean guy with small eyes. If he's wearing a top hat, this looks like the minimum rest. And you can tell it's a minimum rest because if he's wearing a top hat, he has 2 eyes. There's 2 eyes under the top hat. And then, yeah, and then you know that the other one is a semi-brief rest. It's not the best analogy I can give, but there's not many good ways to remember it. So a semi-brief rest, yeah. So a semi-brief rest can also be used to indicate a whole bar rest. So what that essentially means is that in 2-4 time, if you wanted one whole bar of rest, you wouldn't use a minimum rest. Instead, you would use the semi-brief rest in place as a whole bar rest. Okay, I think that makes sense. Does that make sense, everyone? Yep, okay. So does anyone want to try number 18 of writing corresponding rest? I think you guys can add it on the screen, so you guys can do it yourselves. This is just to write its corresponding rest, number 18. No one?
Crotchet rest.
Yeah. So I want you to draw it yourselves because I want to see how well you can draw it. Okay. Please answer me. I just want someone to try drawing these corresponding rests. You guys can draw on the screen. Okay, so I'm not sure if it's the same for you guys, but if you go to the top of the tab and you click options, there's an annotate option, and then you can use it to, yeah. I'll have everyone do one each. So Eva, you can do the first one, the crotchet. Hamish, you do the second. Hazel, you do the third with the quaver rest, and Abigail, you do the fourth. Yep, Eva looks about right. Probably more like this. I understand it's freehand, so it's a little hard to draw. Hamish, Yep, good. Just a rectangle hanging from the fourth line. That's right. And quaver rest, Hazel. And Abigail, you can do the middle rest.
How did you on the screen?
Okay, so if you go to the top of the screen and you click options, there's a tab that says annotate. And then you can good, Abigail, make sure it's very clear that your rectangle is sitting on the third line. Hazel, have you figured out how to draw on the screen yet? Oh, there we go. Yep. So if you think of a 9 and you color it in, that would look roughly right. Like a 9, color it in. Okay, everybody, good job. So we're all confident with notes and rests, and especially semiquavers. Okay. So I also want to introduce you to the triplet, which is a group of 3 notes played in time of 2 notes of the same value. Might sound a little confusing, but it's essentially well, if you want like a very simple analogy, it's kind of like buy 2 get 1 free at the supermarket. So, well, it's not quite like that, but you kind of visualize it. Like, look, if you look at question 22, triplet here, kind of think of like buy 2, you have 2 quavers, and you got 1 free in the same, in the same group. But that is treated within the same duration of 2 quavers. So what this essentially means that you can also have crotchets like this. And then if they were grouped in a triplet, that means that that is equal to 2 crotchets in itself. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Kind of? I'm checking the chat if anyone has a question. No? Okay, I move it on then. So triplets equal, if you see a triplet, bring it as into like 2 of the same value. Okay, so we're skipping lesson 7 since we already did that like 2 weeks ago. And lesson 8, compound, so we're learning another different kind of key signature. I mean time signature. So 6/8. So can anyone recall their knowledge of time signatures and tell me what 6/8 actually means in terms of like the top number and the bottom number? Hazel? Hazel? Answer me.
What was the question?
Pardon?
What was the question?
Oh, sorry. So it was like, what does 6/8 actually mean in terms of the bottom number and the top number? So the top number means that there are 6 beats in the bar. The bottom number tells you it's quaver beats. Yeah? Okay. I'll erase that. So you might notice that we split away from simple time, which is 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, and 6/8 is part of a different category called compound time. So what's the difference between simple time and compound time? Well, in simple time, every single beat is just a plain crotchet or quaver or minim or something. But like in compound time, the beat division is a little more complicated. So let me just tell you, like for starters, that in 6/8 time, you don't group your notes in quavers. However, you have to group your notes in dotted crotchets. Let me explain. So, oh, this is annoying. Okay, there we go. So in question 5, this is a perfect example. So there are 6 quavers in each bar, but instead you have to group your quavers in 3. It looks a little weird, right? So that means if you had a crotchet can't go spanning between the 3rd and the 4th beat. Instead, you'll have to use a tied quaver if you wanted to have it held over the 3rd and the 4th beat, and even then, that's not really recommended because you're omitting a main beat. So if you recall that in grade 1, I kind of taught you how, like, for example, 4/4 was like strong, weak, strong, weak, medium, weak. Okay, but in 6/8, it's kind of more like strong, weak, weak, medium strong, or strong, weak, weak. So the first is strong, the 4th is also kind of strong, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 6th, they're all weak beats. So in 6/8, you remember that you don't put a crotchet over the 3rd and the 4th, nor the 6th and the 1st, but you don't really do that. You probably wouldn't think about doing that anyway. So yeah, you group in 6/8 in 3 quavers. 1, 2, 3. However, this is not a triplet. If it's a triplet, it would have a line through it like that. But even so, you couldn't really put triplets in you couldn't really put triplets in 6/8 time because it wouldn't really work out in a way. So I'll just show you as an example. So take this crotchet, right? If I replaced it with a triplet quaver, then we'd have some trouble because we're kind of changing the rule of quaver here, and plus the quaver's already grouped in 3, so the triplet kind of sounds out of place. So I guess if you really wanted to, you can kind of treat 6/8 as quaver triplets, though I'm not sure how that fits in. And don't get too accustomed to it, otherwise when you're coming across writing 6/8, you might accidentally write triplets instead of normal quavers. Okay, does that make sense? So we just talked about this. It's a strong on the 1st beat, medium 4th, strong the 1st, medium on the 4th, strong, medium, strong, medium. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? Okay, right now, what's the 6/8 time? Yes, rests. So okay, So with crotchet rests in 6/8 time, you can use them to cover the first and the second, or the fourth and the fifth, but you can't use it to cover the second and the third, or the fourth and the fifth, because you can't group weak beats together. But you can put a crotchet rest on the strong beat following a weak beat. Okay, and why would it be wrong to write your crotchet rest this way? Well, remember, you always have to remember that in 6/8, you are grouping your notes in dotted crotchets. So 3 crotchets separate, that's not allowed because it's not following the grouping. And you can't put crotchet rests like this because that is covering the second and the third beat, which is not allowed because you're not allowed to group weak beats together. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Let's see, what else is there? Okay, that's how much else there is in here. So I'll have you write okay. I'll share a whiteboard so I can convey a task. So in 2/4 time, write a 4-bar rhythm, so you don't have to include any like pitch. I just want to see that the rhythm is right. And use notes, rests. So try to use all the notes and rests that we've learned. And same in 3/4 time. In 4/4 time. So you don't actually have to pull out your stave paper for this. You can just write it on a blank sheet of paper, since I'm not really worried about the pitch of the notes. I'm just worried about the rhythm. In 4/4 time, write a 4-bar rhythm using all notes, rests. In 6/8 time, write a 4-bar rhythm. Remember to group your notes in dotted crotchets. Okay, so you don't have to pull out your stave paper for this. You can just use normal paper. Because I'm worried because I'm looking at the rhythm, not the pitch of the notes. Yes, Emma?
How do you use a semiquaver in 2/4 and 3/4 time?
So if you group your semiquavers in 4.
No, I meant a semi-groove, like the 4.
Oh, yeah, ignore that. Sorry. Yeah, Hamish, preferably try and like somehow use the dotted notes as well. You don't like necessarily have to use all of them. Just like try and use most of them in like all of your yeah, in all like over all four of your compositions. Try and use all of the notes that we've learned. And also, yes, you are allowed to put a dotted minim in 6/8 time. If you want to use tie notes, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. You can show it to me like one at a time, guys. I'm not like too fussed about that. Ah, okay. Wait a second. Yep, Hamish, that's pretty good, except except for the last part of your 4/4 time. If you were to use that many rests, just you can also group rests together. So remember, you can just like put it as a semi-brief rest. It's unfortunate that you can't go around the cheat way and use like all your rests together. Okay. If I so in the third bar of your 2-4, remember if you're going to use a triplet, then you should put like the triplet line over it. Wait a second, Hamish, can I have a quick look at yours again? Because I think I didn't catch everything. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Good. Okay, so Eva, so with your first bar of 3-4, I wouldn't recommend doing that because so putting a minim on beat 2 and 3, it's a little risky because you're considering that you can't group your weak beats together. So your first bar of 3-4. Okay, so Hazel, in 6/8 time, about the only notes you could probably use is a dotted minim for like a whole bar, a dotted crotchet for 1, 2, 3 beat, a crotchet covering the first and the second, or the fourth and the fifth beat, or a straight line of 6 quavers. So that's pretty much your only options in 6/8. Abigail, it's a little light. But yeah, I think it looks good. You know, Abigail, I'd recommend using some 2B or 4B pencil for theory. So for theory, because firstly, so it's the pencil that make it like darker, so you can so I can and you can see it better, and also yeah, use a pencil so you can rub things out. Hazel. Yeah, okay, so everyone's making this mistake. So unfortunately, you can't put so you can't have like separate rests because rests also need to be grouped properly. So if you had like 2 quaver rests, that makes a crotchet rest. If you had 2 crotchet rests, put a minim rest there. If you had a minim rest, put a semi-breve rest there. So unfortunately, you can't. Yeah. So Abigail, I was saying could use a 2B or a 2B or a 4B pencil, because there's kind of pencils like the lead is a lot darker, and yeah, it's much easier to see. So for my theory, this is, oh wait, you can't see it. Look at this. So this is a 4B pencil that I use for my theory. And then like if I want to do some really sharp coloring, I have let's see. Yeah, I have some mechanical pencils and some 2B lead. So that's like a good pencil case for doing theory. Okay, okay. Eva, the only thing I would say about your 3/4 time is that the last bar, 2 dotted crotchets might be a little risky because that's more of like the 6/8 time. So 3/4, you're meant to group your notes in crotchets, which means you can't really put 2 dotted crotchets next to each other, because although they fulfill the beat, they fulfill the beat requirements, they don't. You're not following the grouping correctly, or at least not quite. Hazel. Wait a second. This is very. Oh. Okay. So what I want to tell you guys is that you can also beam your quavers and crotchets together. I don't know quavers. Semiquavers and quavers together. It's like so I'll show you. Am I sharing a whiteboard? I'm not sure whiteboard, sorry. Okay. So you can, if you had, so you can group it like that. There's no need to do something like this. That's not how you don't
I can't see your
that's a
screen.
note there. Yep, so you can write it like that.
I can't see your
So for the
screen.
time being, I want you guys to always group your semiquavers in 4s or with a quaver. Oh no. There you go. Oh. Is anyone else finished? I know Hamish. I gave Hamish the all right to go. I think ever yeah, Hazel, I want you to change some of your like semiquavers and quavers into like that format. So yep. And Eva. So I'm just trying to get a good look at that. Okay, for 6-8, your full bar, are those triplet markings? You can't remember, you don't put triplets in 6-8. You just group them as quavers, as 3 quavers. You don't put them as triplets. Hazel, I think. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, 6-8. Your grouping. Yeah, your grouping's a little not right. Hamish, I know you've been waiting for a while. Do you want to try any of these exercises again, but with an anacrusis? Yeah. Actually, I want you to do 6-8 time again, but with an anacrusis. Dun, 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 Okay, Hazel, problem. So if you were to use a semiquaver in 6-8 time, you'd have to group it like this. Wait a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's not. So it would look kind of something like this. Unfortunately, you couldn't really separate it because semiquavers, you'd have to like keep them together in 6-8 time. So that would be worth a dotted crotchet. So that's kind of like a beware of if you're using semiquavers in what's it, in 6-8 time. Okay. Okay. Eva, not sure what you did in your first bar of 6-8. Could you just check that? Wait, Hazel. Okay, so remember, so 6 semiquavers is equal to 3 quavers. So that means you've only gone like half a bar of 6-8 time. So in a bar of 6-8 time, you need 6 quavers. Abigail, are you finished? Okay. Okay, yep, that's a lot better. No, it's not a lot better. So Eva, you can't put a crotchet on the second and third beat because you'd be grouping 2 weak beats together. Yep, Hazel, very good. Hamish, Hazel, and Abigail, if you're finished, you can go. And Eva. Yep, perfect. Eva, you can go. Bye, everyone.